Hi, fifth grade friends. So at this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on Seesaw, said that so, and model for you how to navigate the assignment for the final project. So let me share my screen. Okay. So when you have an opportunity, be sure to read the directions in full, as well as listen to the directions if you'd prefer that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click Add Response. And in my case, I'm going to click Sample Student. All right. And what I love about when you are in Seesaw and you're at something like this is I can click View Instructions as opposed to having to click out. All right. So I have all the instructions right here. Okay. So I am designing my own town and I need to be sure that I am meeting all of the guidelines. All right. So I see here I already have a coordinate system. I see that it's labeled 0 to 10 on both the X and on the Y axes, which is great. That's a great start. So guidelines. Number one, give your town a creative name. So to create a name, what I would do is just click this T, okay, which gives me a text box, and I will come up with a name. So let's just say Riversideville. That'll be my town name. And I can maneuver that around. I'm gonna just shrink it so it doesn't take up too much room. So that's my town name right now, Riversideville. I'm gonna put that right up there in the center. All right, so that's guideline number one. For number two, it says include a compass rose. So this is gonna be a little tricky. This is where you're gonna have to refer back to your previous knowledge of a compass rose. And I'm going to draw one up here and I'm gonna keep it nice and I'm gonna try to make it as easy as possible. So there's a few ways we could do this. I could do it this way, all right, drawing it that way, but that's not gonna be that neat because I can't create lines too straight that way. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna click this right here at the bottom left, the dot, dot, dot. Okay, I'm gonna do shapes and I'm gonna do an arrow. So let's click out. So I click on my arrow. I'm gonna rotate it a little bit. Okay, shrink it, shrink it, shrink it. Ooh, I like that. All right, and so actually I want to create a duplicate of that. So I have one going in the other direction. Okay, and I'm gonna overlap these just like that. So now I've got arrows going in both directions, which would be my north and my south. And so I'm gonna do the same thing, but for east and west. So let's do duplicate. I'm going to turn it. And you notice how I'm turning it using this, this button up here, where you see the arrow to turn it. All right, so I've got that going that way, and I'm gonna duplicate it one more time, going this way. And boom, so I've got my compass rose. And then the last thing for my compass rose that I have to do is I have to label it. So I can either write that, I could do north, south, east, and west. Or I could use a text box for each of these, but that would be 4 different text boxes. So whichever you prefer. All right, so that's guideline number 2, including the compass rose. Then it says label the origin. I know that the origin is where the Y and the X axes intersect, and that is right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to write origin, and I'm going to bring that over here, make it super small. I don't need that to take up a lot of room. Over here, and I'm actually just gonna put it right there, because if you put it right there, I know where you're trying to put it. That's right at the intersection between the Y and the X axis. So we're off to a great start. We've got a town name, we have a compass, we have the origin, and now we're at step 4 where it says draw at least 4 buildings as 4 different quadrilaterals. All right, and then it says see page 2 for quadrilateral reference sheet. and label each building. So if I'm saying, I don't really remember my quadrilaterals, I'm going to click on this picture, okay? And as I said, in page 2, you'll see a reference sheet here. So I see trapezoid, a kite, a parallelogram, a rhombus, a rectangle, and a square. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different quadrilaterals, and you're being asked to draw 4 of them to represent these buildings. Okay, so there's 2 ways you could go about this. You could draw them, as I've said, using this feature, but that's going to be tricky. What I would recommend is you look here, again, dot, 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 and then shapes, because you'll see various shapes. So right here you have a quadrilateral. This is a rectangle. Here you have another quadrilateral. That is a square. Here you have another quadrilateral. That is a rhombus. We have a trapezoid. Okay, we have this is a parallelogram, but could also be considered a kite. You know, they really, a lot of them align with one another. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different quadrilaterals that can be used here. And then if you want, you could draw another one. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click on the square for now. Okay. And what I get to do with this, and I can mess around with the color. Let's make it, I want to do light blue. I like that. It's like the compass. What I can do is I can maneuver this around on my coordinate system. So let's say I want it right here, right? I'm going to make it just like that. What I am going to do now that I have drawn this building is I need to label it, okay? So I need to make sure I have 4 buildings: school, a post office, a hospital, and a grocery store. So this is a square. So I've used 1 quadrilateral, and I'm just going to go in order. This is going to be my school. So I'm going to label it a school. Okay, and what I'm going to do, clicking around, and I'm going to drag that here. And I wonder if I can fit it inside. I can. Boom. Love that. Love that. So that's my school. Okay, so I have 1 quadrilateral down, and I have 1 building down, and I would do that for all 4. So the next building I draw would be a post office, and again, I'm going to click the dot, 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 shapes, and let's say I'm going to use a trapezoid for this one. Okay, I'm going to go back here, and let's do it like this. Gonna mess around with this a little bit. So I'm actually gonna do it. I'm gonna do it right there. All right, and that is my post office. Okay, so again, text box, post office. All right, I'm gonna click around until it lets me, nope. Click here until it lets me shrink this down a little bit. And I don't wanna make it that small, but I'm gonna put it right there. So that's what you would be doing for the part where you're drawing the buildings and you're using different quadrilaterals. What's important to note is that these buildings have coordinates, okay? I can't just have my trapezoid floating around, and when you see on the vertices, 1, 2, 3, 4, they're floating in no man's land. I want my vertices, okay, like you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, I want them to be points on my system, all right? So if I were to draw, let's see, can I do this right here? Right, so I've got a little point there, I've got a little point there, and you don't have to do this, but I'm just doing this so you can see it. I've got a point here, and I've got a point here. And that's really important because just as you did when you were sinking my ships, okay, you identified the coordinates, and you are going to do the same thing here. So for step 5, we'll get back to step 5 because that's similar to step 4, just another thing to include in your town. Step 6 says, on a separate piece of paper, list all of the coordinates you have included in your grid. For buildings, remember to write all of the ordered pairs that make up the building in the order they should be plotted, okay? And then it gives you an example of a school and the different coordinates, okay? So what I want to do is on page 2, I can see I have a template for me to write the coordinates. So I'm going to start with the school, all right? Now, if I look at the school, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 coordinates that I can plot, okay? So remember, crawl before I walk. So my X coordinate is going to be 1, and my Y coordinate is going to be 7. So for school, I would write 1, comma, 7. That is my first pair, okay? Let me go back. Now I'm gonna identify this point right here on my system. Okay, again, I'm crawling 1, so 1, comma, 9. And I would go back and I would write 1, comma, 9. Okay, I got it right there. And I would go through all 4 coordinates. So I did this coordinate, I did this coordinate, and now I would need to do this third and this fourth coordinate. And I am writing those on my reference sheet here, okay? So I would do that for all 4 of my buildings that I eventually create, and I would do it for the additional 2 points that are on my coordinate system, which is step 5. So I skipped over step 5. Step 5 is including 2 points such as trees or flowers or traffic signals or a sign or a bench or any other object that you want to include in your town. You have the freedom to design your town, okay? And those would just be 2 points on your system. So if I was doing that, let me see, can I make this a little bit bigger? So let's say I was doing this. So maybe right here, okay, is a tree. I'm gonna try, this is gonna be tricky drawing a tree on here, but okay. So there's my tree. Just gonna make this a little bit bigger so we know where we're looking in terms of our point. So I would need to label this on my template. So if I look right here in the middle, all right, to identify that point, again, I start at my origin, crawl. So I crawl 1, crawl 2, and I walk 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that would be 2, comma, 4. And to do that, I would go back here, and then I would say 2, comma, 4. And just maneuver that around, so that would be at the bottom. 2, comma, 4. All right. And then step 7, your finished project should be neat and legible. So before you submit this, what I would just do is go through the guidelines and make sure you met every step along the way. So I hope me modeling this process for you in terms of how I went about meeting each of the guidelines and including all of the things that I need to include was helpful. You have a lot of freedom with this project. You don't have to use the exact same shapes that I used for my school or for my post office. You're the governor. You get to help design the town, okay? So you're including 4 buildings, making sure that each building is a different quadrilateral and you're using the reference sheet to help you. You're including 2 additional points on your coordinate system, just as I modeled with a tree, and then you would do 1 other. You don't have to do a tree. That's just what I chose to use. And then on that separate piece of paper, like I modeled, you are including the coordinates to your town. So I can navigate it like a map. So you're creating a town map by listing these coordinates for us. Okay, and then just make sure you're, like I said, at the end, going through each of the guidelines to make sure that you did all of the different things that you need to do as governor in designing this town. So I hope this was helpful. I will post a picture of my finished final product for you to see an example of a finished project. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or your teacher, and I would be happy to help.